We live in a world of, well, almost impossible contrasts, a place where a select few can hold fortunes that rival the GDP of entire nations, while at the same time, billions struggle for the most basic essentials of survival. This isn't a story about individual genius or luck. No, it's a story of architecture, of systemic design.
Think about this for a moment. In 2021, Jeff Bezos comes back from his $5.5 billion trip to space, and he thanks the very workers whose labor made it all possible. The Oxfam report, Inequality Inc., really zeroes in on this moment. It wasn't seen as just a simple thank you. It was a perfect, almost surreal snapshot of a new Gilded Age. You know, the sheer scale of this kind of wealth, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Since just 2020, Bezos' personal fortune has grown by more than $32 billion. Now, put that number up against a world that's been grappling with one crisis after another. It's jarring, and it forces you to ask a different question. Not how one person can get so rich, but what kind of architecture, what system even allows for it.
Welcome to Insight History HD. Together, we will peel back the layers of narratives long locked away in the archives of history.
So these vast divides, these chasms of wealth that seem to define our world right now, they're not some new problem. They're not a modern phenomenon at all. Really, they're echoes that are reverberating across centuries, coming from a past that was carefully, meticulously engineered to concentrate power and resources into very few hands.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to think about a kind of historical butterfly effect. You know the idea, right? A tiny flap of a butterfly's wings causing a hurricane on the other side of the world. Well, what if the decisions made in some remote colonial outpost centuries ago were that flap? And what if the hurricane is the very structure of the global economy we're all living in today?
Now, the tools, the mechanisms, sure, they've changed, they've evolved. But the underlying logic, it's eerily familiar. On one hand, you have the extractive institutions from the colonial era, right? Built on things like forced labor, just funneling resources away. And on the other hand, what do we have now? We have the hypermobile, shareholder-driven machinery of modern global finance. They're like direct descendants. And this isn't just a theory. According to the paper Colonial Legacy and Economic Persistence in the Americas, these colonial institutions, they were never meant to help everyone. They weren't designed to foster broad development. No, they were purposefully designed systems of extraction. They even had legal frameworks created specifically to move wealth from one place to another and to lock in inequality. So this wasn't some unfortunate side effect, it was the entire point, the primary objective. All right, so if those colonial institutions were the original blueprint, then who are the architects today? Well, we're not talking about presidents or prime ministers. We're talking about the masters of a truly global system. It's a new kind of power elite, and their main allegiance, it isn't to a country, it's to capital itself. This image here, it's from an analysis called Exposing the Financial Core of the Transnational Capitalist Class, and it does a pretty amazing job of visualizing this whole modern power structure. You can see it, right? A single, unified ruling class way up high above everyone else. And those old political divides we hear so much about, they're shown as, well, basically just theater. There's actually a name for this group, coined by the sociologist Leslie Sklair, the Transnational Capitalist Class, or TCC for short. So what is it? Well, it's a global power elite. And their fundamental interest isn't the well-being of any one country, but making sure the entire global economy runs as smoothly, as frictionlessly as possible. And you can see what that means, right? Their priorities often go way beyond national concerns, and they end up shaping policies that favor capital that can move anywhere, anytime, often at the expense of stable communities. Now, this class isn't just one single group. Sklair's work actually breaks it down into 4 interconnected parts. First, you've got the corporate owners, the ones who actually control all that transnational capital. Then there are the globalizing bureaucrats and politicians, the folks who write the rules of the game. Third, the professionals, the managers who keep the system running. And finally, the consumerist elites, especially in the media, who basically sell us the story. And when they all work together, wow, you get this incredibly powerful feedback loop. A corporate goal becomes a political policy, which gets a stamp of approval from the experts, and then it's presented to us as just normal. And look, this isn't just some abstract academic theory. You can actually see the influence of this class. You just have to follow the money. Look at the flow of capital around the world, and you'll start to see a pattern, a very predictable and very self-serving pattern.
So here's some fascinating data from a working paper called Anatomy of the Global Wealthy. It points to this really striking trend. The world's millionaires are literally on the move. They are migrating in huge numbers to places like the UAE, the USA, and Singapore. And why there? Well, it's simple. Those are places that offer financial security, predictable policies, and of course, very favorable tax environments.
And it's so important to understand this. This movement, this capital flight, it's not a bug in the system. It's not a flaw. It is a fundamental feature. It's how the system is designed to work. And this is where we get to the very heart of the system. Research from that same source, Exposing the Financial Core, zeroes in on just 161 people. That's it, 161 individuals at the absolute center of the world's top financial firms. And together, get this tiny group manages nearly $24 trillion. Let that sink in. We're talking about a concentration of financial power that has absolutely no precedent in human history. So, we started this journey with an echo from an old empire. And where did it lead us? To a world where the power to shape the entire global economy rests in the hands of a group of people, a group smaller than the graduating class of most high schools. It really shows you, doesn't it? The past isn't just a prologue, it's the operating system for the present. It brings us right back to the conclusion from that study on colonial legacy. And I quote, "This unequal distribution of resources has created entrenched patterns of inequality and underdevelopment that persist to this day." The words we use might be different now, the technologies have changed, but the patterns, they hold.
The architecture of our world, you see, it wasn't an accident. It was a conscious creation. And that leaves us, you and me, with a really profound and honestly an urgent question. If the systems that were designed in the past built the world we have today, then what kind of world are the systems we're building right now going to create for tomorrow?
If this journey has offered you a new perspective, support our exploration by subscribing to Insight History HD. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next narrative.